being Chinese manufactured and produced precursors and chemicals coming into Mexico through its ports, which are military manned, and nothing is happening. You get a lot of people assassinated that work those ports from the military, but nobody's asking questions like, hey, how is all this shit getting into the country? You have now a U.S. utilizing that as a threatening device to Mexico, and those tariffs are not going to affect anybody but us. The government, they're going to be fine. Those tariffs are going to affect the small companies that sell, do, and move things. That's who's going to be affected. Small people. Cartels are going to give a shit about those tariffs. And again, these organizations were created and fostered by the same governments that are now going after them. I think that's a reality that I don't think gets talked about. And again, maybe Trump wasn't responsible directly for the origin of the Zeta cartel or the origin of the Sinaloa cartel, but he's there now, and he's pointing the finger at them as a terrorist organization. And just like we pointed the finger at Al Qaeda at some point and figured out that we created Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Or just how we pointed the finger at some of the stuff that was going on in Syria. And now we're coming to learn that a lot of these freedom fighters that were in Syria fighting were actually former Al Qaeda people that are now being paid and trained by the U.S. government to do all this shit is coming out now. I can't wait to see what other type of involvement and stuff comes out from the Mexico side of things.
From the Mexico side of things.
Yeah, the war that is going on and has been going on in Mexico, and the U.S.'s direct involvement in aspects of it. Again, Fast and the Furious is just the tip of an iceberg, I think, of the U.S. basically arming a single cartel force in Mexico. The Zetas are trained by U.S. Special Operations, and they're also School of the America graduates, some of them I've heard. So there's a responsibility there. Former presidents of Mexico being CIA bankrolled people. There's definitely some sort of interaction there. Some major government officials being touted as uncorruptible and being showered with awards and accolades by federal officials in the U.S. are now in federal custody on cartel charges.
Mm-hmm. It's hard not to get cynical.
And we have El Mayo Zambada, the historical figurehead of the Sinaloa cartel, issuing a statement of warning to the Mexican federal government that if he doesn't get released and tried for his crimes in Mexico, it's going to destabilize the region. And while that's happening, a bunch of pictures of both the president of Mexico and a lot of his top officials, like this, with all of El Mayo Zambada's lawyers and direct representatives. The rat's nest is large and crosses the border.
How would, if in a perfect world you waved a wand and all of it came out, how would there not be a massive explosion into itself in Mexico for the entire system? Meaning all the rats would be running off the ship and they'd be killing everyone while they run off the ship. And I'm not just talking cartels. I'm talking the people in the government. I'm talking the military. I'm talking if it all came out, like the system's bad right now. It's violent. There's death happening every day, right? But I'm just making round numbers to make this simple. If there's 10,000 deaths happening in the country right now, which is objectively horrible, a day, who's to say that if you pulled the rug out from this thing, there wouldn't be a period of 2 years where it's just a war-torn country where 200,000 people are dying a day?
I think,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, again, I keep looking at the government's rhetoric right now of invasion and military operations still being it's still an option. So I think the U.S. itself and people in charge right now are planning for something like that, I think.
To invade.
To cause a change in Mexico that is very dramatic.
Okay, let's go to this now. I've been waiting to go to this throughout this whole conversation.
Sure.
You've mentioned it several times.
Sure.
We did just declare them a terrorist organization.
There is now on the books a clear designation of that these organizations are terrorist organizations, cartels, which is and they issued a list of all the cartels that are included in this designation.
Were there any left off that you were surprised?
Not really. I think I was surprised that a lot of the names that are on that list or the organizations that are on that list have a clear representation in the U.S. I mean, they're clearly here in the U.S., but it's somehow this designation just it reaches.
Well, that's what makes it weird.
South. Yeah,
because it's like if you're going to designate or I've heard people talk about this. I was talking with Matt Hedger about this. It's like if you're going to designate them terrorists over there, it would be so obvious. Like if we had known that there's Al Qaeda cells here, like they go to take them down. So why aren't they taking them down?
Let's say that you found out like this post 9/11 world.
Yeah.
And we find out, and again, I'm just going to be an example, that Taylor Swift has been laundering money for Al Qaeda, right? Let's say this is a fictional story. We find out
I had to get that on the record.
Yeah, it's a fictional story. we figure out that Taylor Swift is laundering money for Al Qaeda. What should happen to Taylor Swift? Somebody's going to
again. It's a fictional story, but she's
going to get a knock at the door probably, and there's going to be some hate. Okay, so we currently have a Mexican popular singer by the name of Peso Pluma, who is clearly and like this. He sings about it. This guy sings about his relationship. Peso Pluma. He sings about it. He sings about it in his songs, and it's clear as day that he has some sort of tie.
This guy does.
Yeah.
He's in the U.S.?
Yeah, he's in the U.S. He's
he's on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, this designation puts one of the organizations that basically fostered his rise is on that terrorist designation list.
How do we know they fostered his rise?
Because he sings about it. I mean, if people are like, "Hey, Ed, come on," he sings about it.
Now, devil's advocate here. There's rappers who sing about doing shit they didn't do.
But this is if I am saying something that isn't true, we'll hear about it, I guess. But there's a clear line there. So I'm asking if this is a serious attempt by the United States to actually go after these organizations. Why aren't we hearing anything on this side about, tequila companies that are
funded by them?
Funded by political figures in the U.S. They have to have somebody in politics out here. We just saw the arrest of Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, the head of the New Generation Cartel, who may or may not be dead because nobody knows.
But he's arrested, and now he may or may not be dead?
His son-in-law faked his death in Mexico.
Okay.
And miraculously resurrected himself and was arrested in Riverside, California.
Oh.
So what are we doing realistically with this designation? Is this an attempt by the United States to actually eliminate the cartel problem? And this fentanyl epidemic, which the United States created, by the way.
Why do you say we created it?
Because you prescribe fentanyl in the U.S. for a long period of time to people. And then
talking about like the Sacklers and stuff?
The opiate epidemic and all that, that's in America. So when they realized that a lot of the orchards that were being populated with marijuana grows were no longer necessary because you guys are growing weed up here, we cut that off, and now we put heroin in there, and then we mix it with fentanyl to give it a kick. So there's some sort of involvement from China. There's some sort of involvement from the U.S.
Yeah, we'll come back to China. Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a bit. But so, what's going on? Is this an attempt by the U.S. to actually get things in control as far as drug and cartels, or is this an attempt by the U.S. to control its biggest trade partner? Is this an attempt by the U.S. to create an industrial plant in Mexico? Because Mexico is probably the next China. It's on its way to be the next China. China is lagging behind economically. China is getting a drop-off. We don't hear a lot about people immigrating to China. I think China's probably gonna go out of. I
don't hear about a lot of people immigrating to Mexico, though, too, in all fairness.
Well, there's a bunch of Venezuelans and Haitians right now trying to seek asylum in Mexico. So we need to.
And then they're probably trying to find their way here.
Because they were trying to find their way here. Now the border's closed, so now they're trying to stay in Mexico. But
meaning it's not like good talent. Like there aren't engineers to your example, going from here to China.
I want to correct you.
Okay, please. That's why you're here.
There are a shit ton of immigrants in Mexico right now from a very impoverished country. I want you to try and guess which country this is.
It's not someone in South America.
It's the United States.
What?
90% of all new housing in Tijuana, for example, is being bought off by Americans who can't afford to live in San Diego.
Okay, but that's also right on the border.
But there's a bunch of communities elsewhere, like Tulum is ruined by all the Americans living down there.
Yeah, train just went there.
Mexico City has open revolt against all the Americans who are living down there, who are all, if we're honest about it, economic migrants. So yeah, Mexico fosters a shit ton of migrants.
Oh,
so I just wanted to get
shoes on the other foot now.
I just want to get that clear. What I think the U.S. is trying to what I think the U.S. is trying to do long term is that I think the U.S. sees in Mexico the potential that it has to be a economic superpower. I think it has the potential. I think one Mexican worker is equal to 3 or 4 Chinese workers as far as productivity.
One Mexican's better than 3 or 4 Chinese?
Yeah.
Chinese got to get it together.
And there, the U.S., the first time Trump came into power, he had this whole, bring manufacturing back to the U.S., which was stupid in a lot of ways.
Why?
We did that in Mexico. And speaking purely as a strategist, I guess, the trade agreement he came up with Mexico, the renegotiated trade agreement was brilliant for the U.S., not for Mexico, but for the U.S. So that was a pretty strong deal for him.
Great deal.
Great deal. Like he fucking, he hit it on the park with that. Again, from the U.S. perspective, not Mexico. But he told a bunch of companies in Mexico to leave Mexico and come back and manufacture in the United States. Mm-hmm. China took full advantage of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it was viewed as a punishment to Mexico, but then we saw a giant influx of Chinese investment. During the Biden administration, the peso was one of the strongest currencies in the planet. It didn't fluctuate, and it was because of all this foreign investment coming into Mexico, fostered by that first Trump administration. So I think what Trump figured out and started seeing, or some of the people around him started seeing, is that a lot of these Chinese companies, manufacturing companies, to try and get around tariffs, started saying, hey, we're going to build the first Mexican electric car. But all the parts of that Mexican electric car are made in China, most of them. So that's a way to get around the tariffs. So in a lot of ways, I think he realized that the Chinese were trying to get around a lot of this by figuring out a control and or a good solid footprint as far as investment and collaboration with the Mexican government, and basically cutting the U.S. off. So I think a lot of what we're seeing now as far as terrorist designation of cartels, tariffs being pressured against Mexico, the Mexican political bloc being at odds with the American political bloc as far as who's in charge. I mean, Trump represents some interest and Claudia Sheinbaum represents clearly other different interests.
What do you mean by that specifically?
I mean, Claudia Sheinbaum is all the way to the left.
Right.
Is open Chavista, open supporter of Venezuela. So that's her. And on the Trump side, we have completely the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's
literally just a political divide, you're saying.
That's a political divide, and also the U.S. is realizing that Mexico is much more valuable than it wants to admit. And I think control is a big aspect of this. We're hearing a lot of expansionist talk about in the U.S. about buying.
Yeah, we're going to buy Canada, apparently.
And I don't think you're going to buy Mexico, but I think you are going to and are exerting your control over it. And I think one of the first things you do as an opposing force to control a place is to cause shit and start shit in the area.
Destabilize it.
So the main claim that the federal government has against the United States for the arrest the illegal arrest of El Mayo Zambada is that it destabilized Sinaloa. And it did. I mean, it started a fucking war there. So there's definitely some sort of high level game being
chess.
played.
Yeah.
And Mexico is at the center of it. China is involved in it as well. If you want to think about some of the complexes that have been going on in Mexico, you have the New Generation Cartel who controls ports in and out of Mexico in a lot of ways, including one big one in Colima, who were not affected by the COVID lockdowns when they happened, as far as their supply of fentanyl, for example. So who's moving fentanyl into Mexico even during the shutdowns? New Generation Cartel.
Mm.
So are they being fostered or supported by some sort of entities in China that are keeping these shipments coming?
Yeah.
Who knows? No, maybe it's the triads or like criminal organizations in China. Nothing happens in China without
That's right.
The Chinese have the biggest intelligence operation on the planet because everybody who is Chinese is a part of this operation. So there's something going on there. On the Sinaloa side of the cartel, when the COVID thing was happening, they were smuggling fentanyl from the U.S. into Mexico to infuse their product and then ship it back. Like they caught a guy in, I think in San Isidro with a shit ton of fentanyl back then. So you start seeing these weird fucking influences and games, and you start realizing that there's a proxy war of a sort in Mexico going on. And Mexico is very much being utilized as a proxy war type setting.
Yeah, well, they're the middleman of it, and the war's happening on multiple ends, not the least of which is also in America, where the downstream effects of this are killing people. And to be fair, I'm glad you brought it up earlier. Like, the market was also created by people here.
Yeah.
Through the opioid epidemic and the disgusting nature of what the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma did to this country, which, you know, I try to like take the tinfoil hat off sometimes and just be like, all right, you know, there's just evil people. But it is hard to look at a story like that and say there is not something coordinated there. Yeah. They were allowed to operate with total impunity, and then they were able to make a deal with none of them are in prison.
It's wild. It's wild. You know, who are their lobbyists? You know, What are they doing? Like, why can't we look at that aspect
of course.
It? The legalization of marijuana in the United States was said to like bring it's going to put a dent in cartel finances. Was something you would hear a lot. Cartels came to the U.S. and started fucking growing that weed illegally in federal lands and mixing in it with the legal stuff. Cartels started putting their money into money laundering operations in places like Colorado because fucking it's cash only fucking institutions. Yep. So it didn't do shit. It actually made it grow and it gave them another angle.
And it's also their lowest as far as like poundage that they can move and profit that they can make. It's at the bottom of their totem pole.
And that was at the start of legalization. Now you have Chinese gangs, which we don't hear not a lot about, doing some of the same operations and going into the illegal weed business being grown and then sold through other legal manner.
Yeah, Jorge talked a lot about this.
So the Chinese gangs and organizations. And again, we can't talk about Chinese criminal organizations that are kind of independent from the government. All of them have some sort of...
They do.
So if we really look at it closely, it's not Chinese-based gangs. It's fucking...
Yeah, what we deem as criminal gangs, though, are effectively spies. They don't... It's the same way that, like, you'll hear, you know, any spy you talk to in the United States government, when they go on these podcasts, they'll say your job was to be a criminal on behalf of the United States somewhere else. I'll bet they were considered gangsters in some of the things they did in certain places. So what's the difference here?
There's a video of a line of Chinese nationals at the Mexico border.
In Tijuana.
Yeah. I want you to, if you can find that video... I recognize a military haircut when I see one, and I recognize people not moving their right arm when they're moving around. So like, look at the luggage, look at the clothing. I mean, they're poor and impoverished people. Yeah. They're taking full advantage of a stupid government policy.
Absolutely.
To like, come on, look at that.
Yeah.
Um,
I had
look, the hands behind the back is, very Asian, I guess. But there's videos of them walking around. The videos of them walking around. You have people basically walking around without moving their right hand.
like a Secret Service kind of type deal.
I mean, Putin walks around without moving his right hand because he's strapped. Putin is always strapped.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that these guys are strapped, but some of these people that went across that border, if you could look at just that little element, I mean, these are people that have weapons training.
Of course.
And these guys were welcomed. They were welcomed, and they had orders issued in their native language as far as like, hey, this is how you have to go here.
Oh, it's even so. We had Nick Shirley in here for episode 214 last summer. He got a hold of those, and he had it translated, and we read it on that podcast. It is down to the smallest detail, starting with where they start, all the way to some random little court in bumblefuck town in the middle of the United States, and people out there are trying to imagine every single thing between there. Yeah, it's all covered.
Yeah,
every single day. Yeah. It's easy. It's like I've used this a lot in other contexts, talking about this before. How foreign nations in the ideological warfare and stuff will use our democracy against ourselves. Another example with China would be TikTok. I don't like communism at all, right? But one very useful thing that they can do with that totalitarian power is their kids have their TikTok turn off at 9 o'clock at night, and they're watching nature videos and science videos. Our kids have it on 24/7, and they're watching titty videos. Same thing here. They're using our immigration system, which is obviously extremely broken, and you've experienced that up close, against us to be able to get people all the way through these nooks and crannies down the line to the legal process. Like, have them use the legal process to, once they're in the system and they're just allowed to stay here while that's going on, now they can go disappear.
Yeah. And we're not even talking about real estate, which they are definitely invested in. Like, go to places like LA and around there.
Go to New York. Look at these buildings.
Yeah. So, and TikTok in Mexico it's a whole other thing. It's an interesting thing. That's one of the things that I don't get from the Trump administration, why there was an effort to save TikTok. TikTok is not the friend of anybody as far as the in Mexico. If you want to cross the U.S. Mexico border, you go on TikTok. That's where that's where the classifieds are.
The classifieds?
Like, yeah, who is the best smuggler to cross me the border? You go on TikTok to look them up. There's a bunch of videos on TikTok of successful smugglers basically showing off that they just crossed somebody across the border, and they're all over TikTok. And that somehow we need to save that. Social media is what it is, and I get it. Freedom of information. I'm an anarchist by heart, man. I grew up punk rock. I get it. But some of these things are clearly and obviously being utilized to manipulate and just do bad shit to people. China is definitely an enemy. Mexico has definitely been infiltrated and used in a lot of ways by Chinese state operatives and the Chinese state to go after U.S. interests or just being antagonistical to U.S. interests in the past.
And they're running a reverse opium war too.
There you go, which is pretty poetic if you kind of think about it.
It's very poetic.
It's very poetic. I think one thing that I've also kind of seen, and you see that with the New Generation Cartel, there's a video and pictures of the New Generation Cartel. They're all kitted out in black, and they have signal jammers on their shoulders.
Signal jammers.
Yeah, it's multi-frequency signal jammers. They have multiple antennas on them. So when you see these videos, those things are meant to cut signals, cell phone signals, radio signals, any sort of signals coming out of an environment. And all of those are like, when I saw those are like Temu, those are Chinese bootleg manufactured pieces of shit. And the uniforms are all Chinese manufactured copies of U.S. tactical shit. Their nylon gear is all, so you could see that there's a supply line of some sort from China to Mexico that is supplying that cartel. I don't think they're dumb enough to send anything like a remote guided missile or anything like that. Although a lot of the stuff that was sold to the Ukrainians apparently and this I haven't seen any of it directly myself, but I've heard rumblings in federal government in Mexico about some of those radio guided missiles that were given to the Ukrainians to defend themselves against the Russians showing up in Mexico.
Oh shit! They made their way back here.
A lot of the stuff that the U.S. left behind in Afghanistan, including some high-level vision, not optical, night vision stuff and stuff like that, is also ending up in Mexico. I mean, so yeah, it's a shit show, and there's just responsibilities are everywhere. It's mistaken as Americans to view this as a Mexico versus U.S. problem. There's high-level politics going on. There's proxy war shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
There is a responsibility that the United States has with some of the issues going on in Mexico that goes back a while.
Yeah. Decades and decades and decades.
And there is a giant responsibility that the Mexican government and the Mexican people have themselves. Undoubtedly. I'm not here to say that Mexico is a victim of all this and the U.S. is the big bad.
Right.
Both sides are have their hands bloody. I'd say just is if you're viewing this objectively, and you're looking at this problem and you have a MAGA hat on, or you have a rainbow hat on, or you have whatever hat you have on, division is part of this issue, and it's been utilized for years. Us versus them.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, Trump's not going to show up to the cemetery to bury this 13, 14-year-old kid. Who was experimenting with drugs, and now he's in a grave somewhere. Claudia Sheinbaum is not going to, show up to one of these migrant caravan camps in Mexico to talk to some of the girls and ask them, like, "Hey, how many times have you been raped on your way up here?" Because that would be anti-immigration rhetoric, and she's not going to be able to say anything like that. Because we're supposed to be welcoming and just fostering, like, oh, people just want to move freely, so we need to. So there's a dark effort on both sides of this border to keep some shit under wraps. I think we're living in a day and age where truth is whatever you want to make it, I guess.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But there are things that are coming into light now that have been festering, at least that I knew about, and I was talking about 5 years back.
More than that.
From mass graves to government corruption and participation in a lot of these things, to the military being part of the problem. 5 years ago, I was asked this question, like, hey, if you could do something, what would you do? Like a magic wand thing. Like, and I said, well, that's beyond my pay grade. But I did say whatever effort is going to be done to stabilize Mexico from the perspective of America can't involve the federal government because they're part of the issue. I was laughed at.
So how do you go around that? You shouldn't be laughed at for that. I fully understand why you say that.
Yeah, but back then I was ridiculed for it.
By people who have no idea what they're talking about. So how do you go around that?
I think this is where the U.S. is headed. I think they're going to make an example out of one or two former heads of state in Mexico.
Make an example out of them?
How many times have you ever heard of a Mexican president being arrested on cartel and corruption charges? How can you cause an immediate change from the top down? You chop the head off a king.
So you think, like, I'm painting a hypothetical, they'll have Claudia Sheinbaum arrested?
I don't think they're going to have Claudia Sheinbaum arrested. I don't think they're going to have anybody arrested in office now. But they are going to look at somebody from the past administrations.
Like Vicente Fox or something? Vicente
is dirty. Calderon had a very dirty person in charge of national safety in his cabinet.
Luna.
And again, I don't know, but how can all this shit happen without anybody knowing about it?
It can't.
So you have you have a line of presidents, and you have AMLO there as well. And again, I'm going to have a lot of people on the left side of the political spectrum in Mexico say, "What do you mean AMLO? AMLO's clean. He was
the guy before, right?
He was the guy before Claudia, right?
He was the one hugs, not bullets.
He was hugs, not bullets. And
which was probably invented by the fucking cartel guys laughing in some room with him somewhere.
But he represents more than half of Mexico, because more than half of Mexico voted for him to be in power. And there's a lot of people who are very passionate about him as a figure of change and a figure that transformed Mexico and somebody that's going after all these corrupt officials and all that. But we can't lose sight of the fact that most of the people that are in that party used to belong to all these parties that he's saying that were corrupt, but they're not. We have to realize that his abrazos no balazos pause in this efforts against these criminal organizations made shit worse.
Yeah.
Made the problem grow.
Couldn't have predicted that.
This Auschwitz that was found was probably active during his administration.
Yeah.
Whereas, who is he going to blame about it? He's going to blame, like, his whole thing was blaming Calderon about everything. Like, Calderon kicked off this drug war. He was stupid. Like, he should be in jail and prison. He did everything like exactly the same in his administration. He militarized the drug war. He militarized the federal police.
He militarized the drug war, the same guy who's saying hugs, not bullets? How does that work?
He made a federal, so there was a federal police unit in all Mexico. La Policía Federal was a civilian unit. And the first thing he says, well, we're going to get rid of all the military and soldiers are going to go back to their cartel, to their bases, and no more militarized persecution of the cartels. And the first thing he does is makes the Guardia Nacional, which is a national federal police that is part of the military. Huh. People need to realize this. Mexico has two people in charge. The military as a whole is one person, and the president of Mexico. Those are the people who are in charge of all Mexico. The military, number one, and the president, number two.
Are they separate? They're
separate. And if people want to know how much power the Mexican military has in Mexico, you had a figure by the name of General Cienfuegos, if you can pull him up. General Cienfuegos was active during the
Salvador Cienfuegos?
Yeah. Okay. He was basically heading up all military operations against cartels during the Enrique Peña Nieto administration.
Okay.
And the United States Justice Department figured out that he was actually talking to high-level cartel people over the phone and coordinating things.
How did they figure that out? They tapped his phone.
Somebody somewhere. Like I haven't had access to what they had, but he left that job, and he went to Disneyland with his family, I think, or something like that, and he got picked up by the DEA at the airport. They were going to charge him. They were going to throw the book at him, make an example out of him, and then the State Department issued a letter to the Justice Department saying that for reasons of international security and relationship, we need to send this individual back with all the evidence so he gets tried in his own country, Mexico. So let him go. So all charges were not dropped, but he was basically put into the custody of Mexico. Mexico said, yeah, we'll try him. This is Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Yeah, we'll try him. He landed in handcuffs. Those get taken off, put him in a car, and he gets a military escort to his house. And that's it.
Never charged.
Nope.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
So if basically the Mexican army pressured the U.S. government to let one of their own go, that's what happened. There's no ifs, and they used the presidency of Mexico to like, hey, get him out or we're going to be sad about this, I guess.
I wonder what chits they had to call home on that one.
I mean, so if people want to look at the whole of this issue, the army is involved, the presidency is involved, state, local government is involved, the U.S. is involved. Like everybody has a hand in this. It's not an issue of us versus them. And again, I keep saying this is a regional issue. This is not like a Mexico issue or a U.S. issue. This is a regional issue. And the reason I say that is because we are economically tied to the hip.
Yeah.
And also our families are like intertwined.
Yes.
It's like absurd. Americans live down in Mexico. Shit ton of them.
And how many of them live in America now? Like, we don't even know the number.
We don't even know the number, but there's a ridiculous number of Mexicans living out here.
Yeah. Most represented.
And again, illegal immigration and I may be called out for saying this, but illegal immigration in the United States is essential for the economy. It is essential. There have been places where laws have been passed so that people can't fucking show up to a grow and do la pisca, work on a field, and the economy's crashed there locally, so the laws were changed immediately. Illegal immigration in the United States is essential.
But if they're trying to stop it, though,
that's what I'm saying, that because I don't think they are really.
You don't think you seen this fucking Tom Homan guy?
I've seen him. I've seen some of those raids and all that. I've seen some people being deported that had absolutely fucking nothing criminal about them except the way they crossed into the United States, who have been working quietly for 20 years, who are supporting families and shit like that, being deported down to Tijuana, and now they're what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
So I've seen the injustices being done by some of these policies. But on the other end, I've also seen some of the darker stuff that is being done by people like the Chinese government sending a shit ton of their citizenship through the border.
Yeah.
Or people who are consuming the lives of young people sexually.
How do you, if you don't stop illegal immigration, though, how do you stop that stuff?
Bracero program. I mean, there was worker programs, and there are worker programs across the country that legally bring Mexican labor into the United States to work
and pay them at less than minimum wage.
No, they legalize. They're working legal. They have their wages. They have their ways. There's ways of doing this legally. But there are institutions, corporations, and companies that won't want to fucking pay out, so they don't want to fucking do that.
Right, because they can pay them less.
Right. Or also if they're done with them, they can just call the fucking immigration authorities on.
Right, and they're the people that pay off all the politicians who get into office and make the legislation.
Yep, and some of them were, Trump campaign financiers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Which is, and again, that's when you just look at the money. With all of these issues, look at the money.
Exactly right.
Look at the money. And
I tell people all the time, I'm like, you're not going to get all good. You can get all bad.
Yeah.
But all these people, whoever your God is politically, I don't care what candidate or what office they're in. I hate to be that guy, to be cynical. They're dirty whether they want to be or not.
Yeah.
Period. End of story.
Yeah.
When I go and I vote, and I've done this since the last time I pulled the trigger for someone was in 2016. And I voted in every election except 2020. I have the great distinction in this job that other people do not have this luxury out there, to where when I go in there, down to every position, including dog catcher, I vote journalist, abstain, which is how I do my job.
Okay.
But if I didn't do this job and I actually had to make a decision and, felt like I would want to be a part of the process, I don't think I'd have anyone to choose, because I do look at this stuff. I do look at who pays people, and there is fucking dirt on everyone.
Let me shift this conversation.
Shift it away.
As somebody from Mexico, right? I view the Trump phenomenon with different eyes. I'm from Tijuana, where we assassinated a political candidate for the presidency. He was at the.
Who was that?
Colosio.
When was this?
This was in the 90s, early 90s. He was walking around a place where he shouldn't be walking around, and somebody pulled a gun out in a crowd and shot him in the head. Maybe one person, maybe two. Political assassinations of that nature usually have some sort of motivation behind them, or an attempt to keep somebody from doing something that the greater powers don't want to have happen.
That's right.
Why do you think they tried to kill Trump? And who did? Which is something that gives me pause sometimes when I think about the amount of, I've started to feel like home here in the U.S. when I started seeing all the legal system being weaponized against Trump. That's some Banana Republic level shit.
Yeah.
That's some Banana Republic level shit. When I started seeing the multiple assassination attempts that we heard about, the one we saw on TV, which people say it's fake. Like I know it 223 going, right? Yeah. And also this assassin that we know nothing about, who was a ghost on social media somehow at that age, which is a weird thing. Is my question is, like, from your perspective as a journalist and as an American, does it give you pause to say, like, maybe he is trying to actually do something that is
sure,
counter to the powers that be?
Yeah, let me give you,
because a lot of Mexicans have give pause sometimes. Like, yeah, he's the bad guy. He's like they're telling us he's the bad guy, and he's evil. Not, but why did they try to kill
why are
him?
they trying to kill him? Yeah, I think it's a fair question. Let me give more context to what I just said a couple minutes ago. When I say all these people are dirty, they're not all knowingly. I would like to think all politicians are dirty just because they put a bad taste in your mouth, just because of the job they do and the fact that they even wanted to do it in the first place. But to be clear, they're not all dirty because they actually are voluntarily trying to be dirty. They're dirty because they're a part of a system where it is impossible to not have cash slushing around somewhere that then is going to impact the decisions they make, that therefore makes them dirty. And so when I look at a guy like Trump, do I think there's some people around him that he definitely in the back of his head knows fucking sucks, and maybe there's some reason he has to be tied to them, and that's like a little dirty? Yes. But are there other things that are actually an outsider about him that, even if they're not 100% right, they got the arrow pointed in the right direction for the first time in fucking generations on either party? Do I think that those things could exist to the point that, like, he is someone that, yeah, there could be forces that want to see him gone because of that, which makes you think, like, maybe there's some good there? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to say, like, I think that, I don't know how much subjectivity there is there.
Yeah.
I think that's very objective.
For me, and for most Mexicans that have this momentary pause when they look at him, and again, I'm not saying he's a good character. He inflames people. He's a joker in a lot of ways.
Yes.
You know, he says shit, wild shit, you know? And it's very easy to make him the enemy or the bad guy in Mexico, because all you have to do is point to a few videos of him saying some shit. And
the rapists, the murderers,
all the rapists,
some I assume are good people.
Yeah, all that. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But then why try to kill him, and why try to imprison him with all these weird fucking charges?
Which were all bullshit.
And again, it gives people pause. And like in Mexico, they're like looking at, just like Americans had a momentary pause during the election cycle when that 2-2-3 round nicked his ear and was bloodied, and like, wait a minute, I know I hated this guy, but why are they trying to kill him? Let's vote for him anyway, just to see what happens.
Yep.
It's an interesting phenomenon, I guess. He is a clear, like, for the majority of Mexicans, he's the enemy in a lot of ways. And again, it's easy to see how the media has done its job there, and also it's easy to see how he himself and a lot of his base have done that job of creating this narrative, screaming at people to go back to their home country. And you know, I've been shouted at by people wearing that red hat. You know.
Oh yeah.
And I get it, I understand, but I've also been shouted out by people on the other side. So I get the whole, you know, being in this divide of a country. I have family in the U.S. And I have a pretty clear path in my mind where I'm trying to make things better for them and whatever future that is going to come up for them. I think there's no way moving forward into the future without both countries figuring something out.
Yes.
Mexico has more than earned its place on an international stage as far as a place where culture gets created. We have the best food on the planet. Fight me.
Italians out there.
Fight me.
Yeah.
Fight me. Let's go to Italy, and you know, wherever
I've
you
lived there. It's pretty fucking good.
Good. I'll take you to Tijuana, and the street food there is
Okay.
going to kill anything in a restaurant. But
Yeah, they
that's
might
just
kill me while I'm there too.
Nah. Come on, Italians, you're pretty fucking thick skinned. Come on. So what I'm saying is, there's no moving into the future without us being together on this. The fires in Los Angeles and all the houses that were destroyed. Who's going to build those back? I know a lot of my friends who work in construction, who's going to build those.
Yeah.
We have this giant movement across the country where people are trying to now move away from fentanyl. And it is less of it is still an issue, but less people are dying of overdoses because doctors are getting better at dealing with fentanyl exposure. Because there's Narcan everywhere. Like I remember getting a whole bag full of it in Portland because the government gives it out. So I was like, put some of that in here just in case.
Fucking Portland.
But you start seeing this change in the world. So like fentanyl is probably on its way out as well. Now what comes
You
next?
think it's on its way out?
I think it's on its
all the problems we have.
I think it's on its way out. I think it's getting mixed in with something called trank now. I think people are wise to it in a lot of ways. Maybe some people with mental issues that are living on the street and that fucking get that, but it's no longer that urban drug or that drug that people are fucking taking into like, I'm going to take this fentanyl as I work this fucking 9-to-5 job.
But it's also getting laced into everything too.
That's-
Someone at the club's going to do coke. Turns out it's not coke.
But it's I think we're all of us experiencing an education, and everybody's now realizing that whatever that shit is, it's probably not the best idea.
I hope you're right.
I think between that and sourcing a lot of this stuff and some of those blind lines and change, hopefully getting affected. That's another aspect of this that people need to take into account. We have seen the historic dismantling of the Sinaloa cartel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recently. I mean, all of us have been looking at this on the news. Mass arrest of all of our cartel heads being sent from Mexico to the U.S. Have we seen a spike in drug prices in the U.S.?
No.
No? Or shortages?
No.
Are there like
The resources are just being sloshed around.
are the hospitals being filled with people that are going through withdrawals because of the drugs not going through because of all the cartel guys being in prison?
Right.
So nothing's fucking changed is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So whatever designation means, whatever the tariffs mean as far as pressure, whatever the giant show that the Mexican government is doing for its U.S. audience, like, hey, look at us, we're making a difference now. Look at what we're doing. None of that has made a real clear effect on the U.S. side that we can see. The only thing that I've seen change is immigration. Like there's not 1,000 or 2,000 people showing up at some of these border crossing areas. There's like 20 now. But, that's one aspect of this issue, this problem, which I think, what's more important for national security? Poison being pumped through the border? Or a bunch of Venezuelans running around in mopeds in the middle of New York with debit cards that are living in hotels.
I see where the argument is. Yeah, technically.
Yeah. So again, both of these are issues that need to be solved. But like, why aren't we seeing this dramatic drop of drug use and or supply?
Because there's tunnels, because there's catapults, because there's fucking people on this side of the border who are in business with those people who are taking care of getting it in, because there's boats.
Because manufacturing is now probably happening in the U.S.
Probably, oh yeah.
Probably because people don't want to talk about that, but that's probably.
Do you have evidence of that? I mean, I believe you, but
probably I don't have any evidence of that except just realizing that there's absolutely no dent being put into the problem by all the operations going on in Mexico. So
there's operations in Canada. We know that.
So it's probably being manufactured here somewhere, or probably just being sent through the mail from different places overseas. So, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? People need to realize that a lot of their taxpayer money is being sent to Mexico and has been sent to Mexico for decades, paying the wages of cops, equipment. There's certain U.S.-based companies that sell uniforms, tactical equipment, firearms, vehicles that have made millions off this by selling some of the stuff to the Mexican government. And every year, the violence increases. Isn't that a shitty investment?
It is a shitty investment.
Who's looking into that? Where's Doge right now? Where are they looking into Plan Merida, which is basically this binational plan where where the U.S. is basically paying for the outsourcing of the drug war down into Mexico. And where's that?
I don't know anything about that.
There you go. Where, like, as Americans, we should be asking, like, hey,
what's this called? How do you spell it?
Plan Merida, I think is the Merida Initiative. I think it's one of the programs was called. So basically, the U.S. has been paying for a lot of this drug war, you know. So, like, why is it, like, again, if people want to ask questions or want to start probing around, that's one of them, you know. There's a lot of U.S.-based companies that have made a killing off just selling equipment and stuff like that to Mexico. And, you know, at the same time, the Mexican government has been doing its best to disarm the local populace, which is an interesting thing. You want to hear something.
The local populace, not the cartels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I grew up hunting on a ranch. You can't do that anymore unless you are upper middle class. To get a gun permit, you have to get some money, fly to Mexico City, buy your firearm, get a bunch of documentation to fly it back. Every presidency that comes along, the army gets another bite off that constitutional right that Mexicans have to defend their property with firearms. There's a single federal firearms law in Mexico, which makes it almost unobtainable for anybody that isn't upper middle class or rich to basically own firearms and operate them.
Because it's so expensive to get.
Yeah. And it's every year it gets worse and worse. This new administration passed a shit ton of laws. You can't put a flashlight on your gun to use to defend your home in Mexico.
Why not?
It's illegal.
It's federally put a flashlight on it.
Yeah. It augments its capabilities. So why would a federal government do constitutional amendments to get people from not being armed unless they're getting ready for a fucking revolt?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because this doesn't even make sense. Like, obviously we have our gun issues here in America where there's gun violence that happens. It's nothing like in Mexico, where you have hundreds of thousands of people across the country who are employed by these cartels walking around with fucking Uzis.
I've done some irregular shit in my life. And one of the most irregular things that I did, and I'll speak about it here. We were working in a rural part of Mexico, and this old dude comes to the door with a rifle that he shouldn't have, right? Because it's illegal to have that type of rifle that he had. And I took out the magazines, pulled all the bullets out in a bag, and I left it at the fence, and left his rifle there. Because he has daughters. And that rifle is there to defend those young daughters that might be taken to a party somewhere, which is a story that I've heard over and fucking over again.
Taken to a party?
Cartel guys showing up to a ranch say, hey, we're going to take some of your daughters to this party. We'll bring them back. They're the guys that have guns. You have nothing because the government says that you shouldn't have a gun because somehow you having a gun fosters organized crime. So the daughters never show up. And that's a story that I've heard many times.
What happens to them?
They're liked, so they keep them. They resist, so they shoot them, which is something we don't, you know, again, sometimes I bring up Netflix and some of these TV series about these criminals and stuff like that. Yeah, I get it. Robin Hood is cool, you know, getting over the government is cool and all that. I get the whole romanticize.
They are the
virgin.
government.
That's a thing, you know. But also, some of these criminal organizations and criminal cartel members are pedophiles, and something that doesn't get talked about a lot. Some of these,
I haven't heard shit about this.
Well, some of them go into a town and say like, "Hey, I like her and her, but she's 14. Doesn't matter." We don't hear about that, you know. We don't hear about. We're just hearing about some of these mass graves. Why are there women in those mass graves? We just there's a Monterey. They found 3 decapitated females.
Decapitated.
Yeah. What's going on there? You know, are these cartel sicarias? Why are there so many women being murdered in Mexico? Is it just because we have a proliferation of serial killers that are targeting women? Or is it because there's a weird social thing among some criminal organizations where women are being utilized as resources, and once they're done, or just people get away with shit because of the permissive nature of crime that they fostered across the country, both the government and these cartels.
Yeah. It's the I mean, maybe I'm making a leap here. I don't think I am, though. You keep talking about the government's convincing the people that they shouldn't be able to have guns because it causes violence, and this causes proliferation of guns in the hands of the people who don't give a fuck about the laws, which is the cartels. But the government who's telling them that is the government that's paid by the cartels or works for them directly. So it's basically the cartels are legislating to make sure people don't have guns.
There you go. You have a political situation in Mexico in this last election cycle where over 30 some candidates were killed that we know of.
Like what kind? Like governor candidates, senators, type
all
deals?
of them,
Okay.
right? And we have a single ruling party across Mexico, which is the Morena party, which basically took everything in the landslide.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that there is a political effort by criminal organizations or underground organizations to eliminate candidates, right? And okay, so you have this political candidate that won, and they won by a majority. The first thing they do is they go after the Constitution. A bunch of amendments to the Constitution, including this is the big one. All the federal judges and the Supreme Court, the Mexican Supreme Court, basically, and all the judges in Mexico. They say, well, you know what? A lot of these cartel guys are getting off because the legal system is corrupted. So all these judges are letting some of them out, and they're fucking doing this fucking shenanigans. So we need to figure out how to get rid of that, right? So the constitutional amendment they have is now that all judges are going to be popularly elected officials. This is from a country that just fucking lived through basically cartel-funded candidates.
So now the judges are going to be literally cartel funded.
I mean, unless something changes dramatically in Mexico, in the next, this is right. We're
In the middle of it.
There's a guy. There's one guy I'm going to talk to who is a candidate for one of these positions, and I want to kind of get a read on. You know, you're going to make the people in charge of sending somebody away for a long period into an elected official in a country whose political system and class is completely corrupted.
What percentage of it do you think is? What percentage of people in there do you think are corrupt?
I don't know. There's no way of knowing, you know, but a lot of it is. I mean, if we look at it, let's just look at the current federal administration. The internet did a field day by researching and figuring out all the times that the two main lawyers of El Mayo Zambada were with all of the people that are currently in high-level positions in the government.
It's just like Reddit threads and stuff.
Like one of them is getting like an award by the federal government in the Senate, like this freedom award of some sort. All these El Mayo Zambada cartel lawyers. So there's whole like series of pictures online that came out, and like their solution now is constitutional amendments to keep people from owning firearms or to make it even harder, and to make judges elected officials. Yeah. And you know, I know that the system is corrupt already. Like the judges there, man, I could tell you some of the fucking cases that I worked in where the fucking judge was completely on that side. But I get it; it's corrupt. All of it is it's like a corrupt institution. But what makes anybody think that it's a good idea to make judges politically elected officials in Mexico with the story and the history, the recent
It's crazy
political history that it's had?
And it's not being talked about here. This is the first I'm hearing about it.
So that's not in the possibility realm. That's happening now. Like there's the first rounds of election of these people that are going to be elected. It's just right across. Yes, it's nearby. Again, I'm going to try to speak to one of them who is going to run for that office. And one of the first questions
And
I'm
you
going
just want to get a read on them.
I just want to get the first question I'm going to ask, like, how do we keep people from getting, you know? And this is the thing. It's not going to be a guy with a fucking cowboy hat and a gold tooth and a gun coming in like, hey,
Polo
cabron,
tie.
cabron, I want you to be my judge. Here's all this money for your political campaign. It's going to be that guy paying, hey, bakery shop, hey, here's some money, give it to this guy. Hey, all you guys here, if you don't vote for this guy, we're going to burn your fucking businesses.
That's right.
Or, I don't know, because this is how they work, you know?
Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.